morning. Charlie's back here to answer your legal questions. 436-1212 is the number to dial. If you do have a question for Charlie, it's good to have you back in the studio.
Good to be here. Some warm weather, it looks like.
I know. Thankfully, we are so excited. We're going to go ahead and get to some phone calls this morning. We do have a few questions on the line. Hi there. What's your question for Charlie?
Hello, are you there?
Yes. Good morning. What's your question?
My question is about bankruptcy. My lawyer received all the paperwork on the 18th of this month. How long until I get a case number and whatnot?
Well, I mean, as soon as it's filed, you should have a case number. I don't think there's a problem with that. Since you have an attorney, it's a good idea to have one in a bankruptcy. You probably ought to call your attorney and ask him what the time frame he perceives, or he or she perceives, that's going to be for your bankruptcy. Usually once you get all the paperwork done, unless there's some real contest going on, in other words, people are saying, no, we don't want you to take bankruptcy, we want to contest whether you can take it, because there are times that you can't take it for certain types of debts, it should move pretty quickly. So I think the best thing to do, since you have an attorney, is talk to the attorney about that. As soon as the paperwork's filed with the federal government, which is where bankruptcy is, a case number ought to be immediately given. So as soon as your attorney gets that done, you'll have that case number.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Good question. We have time now for another one this morning. Hi there, what's your question for Charlie? Good morning, what's your question for Charlie?
Hey, Charlie,
go right ahead.
If there's a fence line or a building or a tree line,
Are you there?
yeah, I'm here.
Go right ahead. Are you talking about property lines?
Yeah.
What's your specific question?
Well, if there's been a fence there, a tree line, or a building, does that become the permanent property line after 7 years?
Well, I think what he's talking about is adverse possession, and that means if you have some property, it's been yours or been on your property for quite a long time. I don't know, 7 years is always the magic number. I think it's longer than that usually, but if it's been there and you've used it and it all looks like it's your property, after you've used it so long, then it becomes your property. But there's a lot of exceptions to adverse possession. There's a lot of other things that can happen. So there's no real rule that says what controls it. You have to evaluate each case by the circumstances of that case and the facts. So I couldn't answer that for sure one way or the other. If it is a big deal, it's something that you need to consult an attorney about, and probably are going to need to go to court to get that whole situation straightened out. If it's just a couple of inches, I don't think it's a big deal, but if it's a lot of land, it can become a very important deal.
Well, especially if it was a building that's in question or something like that.
Yeah, usually the building should be okay. I mean, obviously if they've been sitting there a long time, they're not going to tear the building down because somebody didn't do it right. And that's what adverse possession is really about.
Okay.
And some people get it expanded into things, and at times it can go to roads and access to houses and all sorts of things. As you can imagine, that could come around when people get to arguing with each other. So
you get an attorney. Oftentimes, does someone have to come out and actually look at it?
Oh yeah, they'll probably have to have a survey crew come out and try to do the whole deal and find out what's going on. If it's a big deal, I mean, if it's something that is of no consequence, I wouldn't spend the money. I don't think it's a cheap way to go.
Okay.
But it's called adverse possession, and that means if you keep the land, if you use the land so long, then it really kind of becomes yours.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, Charlie. Great question. We appreciate it. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks. Go Sharks.
First, yeah.